As China continues its crackdown, what about political corruption in the rest of the world? Here in the U.S., it's as old as the country itself. CCTV's Nathan King reports.
The founding fathers of the United States, prominent statesmen of the American Revolution, tried to create a government that would put checks and balances on the excesses of human nature, including corruption. Nearly 250 years later, it hasn't always worked out. The presidency of Civil War hero Ulysses S. Grant was considered one of the most corrupt ever in U.S. history.
Things like patriotism.
Spiro Agnew, President Nixon's vice president, was accused of graft and forced to resign. And more recently, former Representative Jesse Jackson Jr., the son of the civil rights hero, was jailed for illegally spending campaign money on himself.
Accept responsibility for the errors of my ways.
Taking bribes, accepting money they shouldn't be accepting. Some lesser, some more serious, but definitely even at the highest levels of the U.S. government, including Congress, there are recent examples of corrupt practices that are taking place. Not the norm, but it definitely does happen.
One of the reasons that corruption may not be the norm here in Washington, D.C. is that what is considered corruption perhaps in other parts of the world is perfectly legal here in the United States Capitol. We're standing on K Street, the center of a vast lobbying industry where special interest groups accept money from businesses and unions and use it to influence lawmakers. Hundreds of millions of dollars are spent every year in Washington by lobbying firms that often employ former lawmakers. Nearly half of all U.S. members of Congress leave office and become lobbyists, many trying to influence their former colleagues on someone else's behalf. And in 2010, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled in a case called Citizens United that corporations and unions could spend unlimited amounts of money on election campaigns, either supporting or campaigning against candidates. Recently, the billionaire industrialists, the Koch brothers, announced they intend to raise and spend $900 million for the 2016 election to bankroll conservative candidates. Lesser funded but well-organized unions will back more liberal candidates. These developments have led to a sharp decline in public trust of the U.S. government. When asked whether the government is corrupt, 79% in 2013 said yes, a 20% increase from just 7 years earlier. Since 1964, the number of Americans who believe government is run for interests of a few has skyrocketed from 29% to 79%. And those who think the U.S. government exists just for the benefit of the people has dropped from 64% in 1964 to 19% in 2012.
Right now, there's a major war going on, a war of ideas, a war of ideology between folks who believe that there's legalized corruption in place in our elections in the United States, and those who feel that the First Amendment to the Constitution, the one that gives you the right to speak freely without restriction by the government, that's more important. And really, there's no firm answer right at this point as to where this is going to go in the next few years.
For now, the practice of spending money on elections and spending money to influence lawmakers is considered free speech, not corruption. That makes elections in the U.S. expensive. An estimated $7 billion was spent on the 2012 presidential campaign and congressional races. And while it may be legal, many feel the principle of one man, one vote is drowned out by the influence of unlimited amounts of dollars. Nathan King, CCTV, Washington.